This is where we will be focusing around the ESGs. And it's very important to understand what the next big leap could be. Joining us this evening, we have Werner Baumann, who's the CEO of Bayer AG. And Werner, in fact, will be in conversation with Vikas Dandekar, editor, ET Prime, Pharma and Healthcare. Now, Werner Baumann was, in fact, the Chief Financial Officer of Bayer AG, effective 2010. And from 2014 until his appointment as the Chairman of the Board of Management, he was Chief Strategy and Portfolio Officer as well. Ladies and gentlemen, while he's leading this very prolific organization, when we're talking about the ESGs, it is only befitting that we have none other than Mr. Baumann to share his visionary thoughts with us. So with that, let's deep dive into the next conversation.
Thank you so much for this brief introduction. We have with us Mr. Werner Baumann, who heads up Bayer AG, a huge German conglomerate of about $44 billion in sales. And thanks so much, Mr. Baumann, for joining us for this prestigious event we have, the Economic Times Global Business Summit, a name where most of the largest big business names really congregate, and we have some essential dialogues through this very essential platform. And every year we actually look forward to this session. So thank you so much. So the topic that we have actually have on the table right now is about ESG, the next big leap, and environment, social, and governance have been a big topic of discussion over the last few years, and how it has actually become a very important component for analysts and the financial world also to really evaluate companies. So it's slowly picking up momentum, and you have been at the driver's seat also as the Chief Sustainability Officer of this large conglomerate of crop sciences, life sciences, and consumer business. So I would like to start with a brief introduction of what you have to say about this whole changing business environment, and where do you see yourself wearing two hats as a global CEO and also as the CSO?
First of all, Vikas, thank you for the opportunity to participate in your prestigious event. And also thank you for the opportunity to talk about something that is front and center of many people's minds right now, and that is how to cope with global warming, and in general, how to provide a better environment for a more equitable world that all of us live in. Now, having said that, Bayer has been around for almost 160 years as a company, out of which we've also been present for about 125 years in your wonderful country. And one of the elements that has always been a focus for us is to be a good corporate citizen and also cater to the needs of the people that we serve, which also includes an element of sustainability, because everything that is not sustainable will inevitably come to a quick end. And after 160 years, I dare to say that we have done fairly well, also guided by our purpose, which is science for a better life, and the vision that we have, that we are really in the business of providing health for all and hunger for none. Now, looking at the changes that we have seen over the last decades, it's clear that we cannot continue the way we have been operating the world over the last decades. We see global warming having a massive impact. We see it with farmers who are deprived of their harvests. We see it with catastrophes around the world. And we simply have to take action, and business is an integral part of the solution going forward, both with the scale and the solutions that we have and the innovation that we can work on. If we don't do anything, our planet will be seeing an increase of 2 degrees Celsius in global warming in virtually no time. There's not a lot of time left, and we are fully committed to contributing to the Paris Accord and the 1.5 degree objective that has been set for 2030. And since it is so important for the company and to me personally, I'm kind of operating as a CEO and the Chief Sustainability Officer at the same time, because these are two sides of the same coin for us in the company and for me personally.
Sure. Now, coming to the part about sustainability, and I understand Bayer has an army of 15,000 scientists, and that's huge. That's like a workforce for an entire business company, a group. So how do you want to utilize part of those scientific innovation capabilities in terms of progressing your aims and objectives on sustainability?
Well, because if you look at some of the critical United Nations sustainability goals, one is, of course, no hunger, and the other one is broad access to health. That is essentially what we are doing as a life sciences company. Yeah. So our business is to invent and make available new drugs, either to provide better therapies or ideally to provide a chance to heal diseases that cannot be healed today. And at the same time, put people in the position to actually produce enough food, healthy, good and affordable food that at the same time is being produced in a sustainable manner. So if you look at our R&D footprint, we are a company that has a turnover of about 45 billion euros annually. And as you rightfully point out, we are an innovation company. We are investing about more than 5 billion euros every year, so much more than 10% of our turnover into R&D, because our firm belief is that the challenges that society faces today can only be solved with new and innovative approaches. So the traditional solutions that we have been operating the world with are not the ones that will cut it going forward. Maybe I can illustrate it with a few examples that make it more tangible. Imagine that about 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions are due to the production of your nitrogen fertilizer. And we are working with a company on teaching plants to fix that nitrogen right out of the air. There are some plants that do that very well, others that we think we can educate and enable to do it substantially better. And with that, we would substantially reduce primary energy consumption by fertilizer production, but also the runoff of nitrates and the likes that are a major issue, for example, for groundwater and freshwater treatment and the availability of fresh water. The second area that I'd point out is that we are kind of looking at almost a catch-22 or a dilemma, where we see a growing population. In the next month, the 8th billionth citizen will be born. So we are going to be 8 billion people on this planet, and we are going to be 10 billion in about 25 years from now. And all of them want to have a good life and they want to be fed. Now, typically, you would look at an expansion of agricultural surface, which would then be in stark conflict with nature preservation and actually also reforestation and the recultivation of land for carbon capture. So we have to intensify and with that find better varieties, look at better farming practices, also with smallholders who play a huge role in order to help them produce more with less on less surface. And that will only be possible with some of the new seed varieties that we're working on, with varieties that are more drought resistant, varieties that can capture more carbon in their rootworm work and so on. And these are the things that we are working on the pharmaceutical side, on the agriculture side, while we are working on approaches to curing some of the most devastating diseases. If you look at oncology, if you look at genetically caused diseases with genetic defects, and that is what we are doing for a living with our researchers who really spearhead it, at the forefront of innovation.
Right. You touched upon some extremely important points and extremely vital elements for developing world. You mentioned about health for all and hunger for none. And you also mentioned about how you want to make medicines available, to the poor countries also. But the shift has been mostly for pharmaceutical companies, have been for the diseases of the rich world. How do you want to bring that bridging from your efforts as a big organization?
Well, society and with it companies like ours, are really struggling to make sure that there's fair and equitable access for everybody based on what people can afford when it comes to accessing good health solutions. And it's totally clear, because that in the developed world, people have to pay more for drugs than in the developing world, because it is actually a very, very expensive undertaking to develop new drugs. And most of the time we fail, and there's very, very few of the early research that will ultimately lead into marketed drugs, because they need to be efficacious, and of course they need to be safe for people. Now, having said that, we have made a huge commitment to make sure that we have an equitable pricing strategy that allows us to continue to do research and development, while at the same time providing much broader access for our medicines. And that cuts across the entire spectrum. There's some basic health needs that need to be covered. For example, with our cardiovascular drugs, one of the drugs that is really iconic, such as aspirin or Xarelto, a very important blood thinner, also for people who currently suffer from COVID infections. But there are other things that are really prevalent around the world, for example, cancer. And we are working on better, more efficacious cancer medicines, and ideally with some of the vaccination programs that are underway with our company, but also with others, ways to eventually vaccinate people against cancer. Imagine what that would mean for people to have an effective vaccine so that they cannot get cancer anymore. And that cuts across a number of other areas where beyond the health aspect, some of our medicines also have a huge role to play when it comes to your gender equality. If you look the importance of family planning, the importance of women in our society, we happen to be one of the largest, if not the largest, women's health companies in the world. And beyond our commercial business, we have also made a pledge to provide access to family planning, to training, to products that will help family planning for women and their families, to 100 million women by the end of this decade. So that's essentially what we are doing, and it's actually universal and not focused on the developing world, on the developed world only, but it cuts across all countries and constituencies around the globe.
Right. Wonderful. Mr. Baumann, you mentioned about your presence in India for over 125 years. I don't know how many companies would have that long a history of a strong presence, and it's so relevant. Aspirin connects to everyone in the world, probably. We don't even need to emphasize that. Now, having reached this huge milestone, would you be able to share some kind of a vision statement with us, particularly in India, on what exactly Bayer looks at doing, specifically, because you have these three big baskets in which everywhere there is so much of growth here. Let me take a chance and ask you, how much of investment would you like to put in India in the coming years? Is it something that you can share with us?
Well, we are operating a business that, as I mentioned, is focused very much on crop science. And of course, locally, we are producing seeds. We have 14 manufacturing entities, so plants in India that we sustain and scale. And it is in the triple million euros that we are going to be investing over the next years to come. So really significant, also looking at the global envelope of investments that we have as we scale our operations in India and in Asia, for that argument overall.
Super, wonderful. It's great to know that you have such ambitious plans for India. I mean, because this is the time to be here. So it's great to have that comment coming from you. So now, so far as the sustainability part goes, how do you align your internal organization when you are operating in so many scores of countries? How do you draw that uniformity to bring about that change in these three massive parameters going forward? Because some countries will have their own unique ways of dealing. The culture issues will be there, their own challenges will be there. Then there will be some others which will be more adapting to those kind of systems and processes.
Yeah. There is not that one silver bullet that will do everything, but it's actually a lot of things that have to come together in the interplay. And the first thing I'd say, because it is very important that there's a clear tone from the top when it comes to what the objectives for the company should be. And the great thing about Bayer is we have 100,000 people around the world. And one of the things that gets all of our colleagues out of bed every morning when they go to work is that they want to do something that is really good for society and the planet. So embarking on a more, let's say, significant stance when it comes to sustainability resonated extremely well with our people. As a matter of fact, they were really waiting for what it is that Bayer can do if we put all of our resources to work for a more sustainable operation, and with it a significant contribution towards reaching the United Nations sustainability goals. Now, having said that, one of the things that we started with is, of course, framing what our contributions can be, but then we very rapidly went into integrating sustainability into our business strategy. Yeah, so we don't have a freestanding business strategy and a freestanding sustainability strategy. We do have one integrated strategy that we continue to operate the company with. And we have also aligned our incentive systems, which is very, very important as well. So 20% of the long-term incentives for our management and managerial employees is based on us reaching our sustainability goals, and that is how you drive alignment and then the right programs. And very importantly, making significant contributions to sustainability is not going to be the same if you're in the UK, in Germany, in India, or in China, or in sub-Saharan Africa. So we have a number of programs that cater to the most significant and most important needs in these communities, of course, framed by an overarching set of objectives that we set for the company.
Right. So what would be your picks, if I'm to ask you, in terms of countries, which are the ones which have actually really done very well on these objectives? And where do you think are the real set of challenges where you will need to improve?
Well, if we look at opportunity and really scaling that opportunity, actually the first one that comes to mind, even if I was talking to somebody else, maybe in the UK or in the US, it would always be India. Because India has such a significant population of smallholder farmers. Almost 90% of all farmers are smallholders in India. And that is, of course, a constituency that we cater to and that we can bring significant benefits to. We do that with our Better Life farming centers. As of, let's say, last year, we have been operating 1,000 of these Better Life farming centers together with partners such as the International Finance Corporation or Netafim and 20 other partners in order to bring seeds, crop protection products, agronomic advice, better financing and access to markets and irrigation to people on the ground so that they can really improve their farming practice and at the same time improve their carbon footprint, which is just as important as creating higher harvests and with that actually more produce for their own livelihoods, but also for the markets they're operating in. So having said that, we have already reached 300,000 farmers with this program. with our objective to get to 100 million farmers by the end of the decade. This year, we are going to be reaching 50 million plus already. And of course, a large constituency happens to sit in India. Yeah,
that's significant. Right. So one of my last questions will be on, there is still a lot of skepticism so far as the ESG programs are concerned, and slowly, it's picking up pace, and companies do have to do something to show that, they are actually being responsible in terms of, the climate change and all the issues that you actually mentioned right at the start of our discussion of how do we make this planet better. So what would be your advice, if you are to actually speak to the top Indian companies, because you have been at the front of the sustainability goals. Not too many CEOs we would see actually having these two portfolios going hand in hand.
I think the most important thing is to have a clear commitment and articulate it well, and then breaking it down into digestible steps that people can follow. One of the things you rightfully say is that a lot of people are watching us, and they are not necessarily sure whether we are serious about our commitments and how we are going to deliver them. And on that one, transparency, communication of targets and steps that we are taking, and then actually also delivering against them are the recipe for success. And of course, we have to have the right environment when it comes to governance and expertise we access.
Super. Wonderful talking to you, Mr. Werner Baumann. In the process of these 30-35 minutes, I think I have really learned quite a lot on how a responsible business can actually be contributing to the development of the planet and make it better for all of us across the world. So thank you so much for sharing those thoughts, and wish you more successes, and hopefully we will see you around in India whenever you are here, and have a good conversation again. So thank you so much for giving your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Thank you.